For decades, Malaysia laughed at Singapore, a tiny island, no resources, a glorified port. History has a mean sense of humour. Now, the traffic jam is heading south. Professionals, investors, and families are moving to Singapore. This is not about culture. This is about money. While Malaysia kept reassuring itself that Singapore was too expensive, Singapore was busy becoming the safest balance sheet in Asia. Capital followed rules and predictability. Singapore didn't steal anyone's future. It priced it correctly. People don't migrate for flags. They migrate for systems that don't collapse. The joke wasn't Singapore. The joke was thinking this would never happen. If you're ready, I'll continue to Chapter 2, where we break down how Singapore engineered itself into Asia's ultimate capital vacuum cleaner. Singapore didn't get lucky. It engineered the outcome while everyone else was busy arguing on Facebook. Start with housing, because that's where emotions go to die. Singapore's system does something brutal and brilliant at the same time. It separates social stability from speculative chaos. Public housing locks in citizens. Private housing monetizes foreigners. There is no confusion about which lane you're in. Public housing isn't a charity. It's forced financial discipline, long leases, resale restrictions, upgrade paths, predictable appreciation. Ordinary households build equity instead of resentment. That alone prevents political panic when prices rise. Now look at private property. Foreigners can buy, but only in tightly controlled segments. No suburban sprawl, no random towers rotting half empty. Supply is rationed like a scarce financial instrument. When demand rises, prices don't collapse, they harden. That's why Singapore condos behave like bonds with leverage. Rent flows in, vacancy stays low. Exit liquidity exists because global money trusts the rulebook. Investors don't fear sudden policy mood swings or moral lectures about speculators ruining society. Compare that with cities that chased volume instead of credibility. Overbuild, discount, prey. When capital leaves, prices don't correct, they freeze. Now stocks. The Singapore Exchange is boring on purpose. No meme stock circus. No retail frenzy glorified as financial inclusion. The exchange is designed for institutions that hate surprises. Banks pay dividends like clockwork. REITs are backed by ports, data centers, hospitals, logistics hubs. These are assets that survive recessions, pandemics, and geopolitical tantrums. Pension funds don't want excitement. They want predictability that compounds quietly. Malaysia mocked this model as slow, as elitist, as serving foreigners more than locals. Then came the global tightening cycle. Currencies moved, capital retreated. Suddenly investors asked one question only. Where will rules still work when everything else breaks? Singapore answered before the question finished. Add tax clarity, add legal enforcement, add immigration filters that select income, not sympathy. The result is simple. Money enters, stays calm, and reproduces. This is the part people hate hearing. Singapore doesn't chase talent or capital emotionally. It screens them like credit risk. You are either accretive to the system or you are noise. Malaysia laughed at this cold logic for decades. Now the same people who laughed are studying entry requirements, property floor prices, dividend yields, and residency pathways. Not because Singapore is fun, because Singapore doesn't flinch. Malaysia's biggest lie wasn't corruption or politics. Those are obvious. The real lie was this: cheap equals opportunity. For years, Kuala Lumpur sold itself as Singapore, but affordable. Lower property prices, lower taxes, lower cost of living. The pitch worked on paper, but failed in real life. Let's start with real estate. Condos were cheap because supply exploded faster than income. Developers built for buyers that didn't exist, creating resale markets that moved like concrete. The part nobody puts on brochures is exit liquidity. In Singapore, you sell to rotate capital. In Kuala Lumpur, you sell to escape. Cheap entry means nothing if your exit is a hostage negotiation. Now zoom out to currency. A property might show a 20% gain in ringgit, but convert it back to USD or SGD, and the gain looks like a rounding error. Currency risk doesn't announce itself. It just eats quietly. Singapore understood this early. A strong currency isn't national pride, it's investor insurance. Capital hates surprises. Malaysia taxed investors through depreciation. Stocks weren't spared either. Malaysia's market chased retail excitement without institutional depth. Family-controlled firms, thin liquidity, and dividends that disappear when conditions tighten. Foreign funds tested the water and left without drama, just outflows. Meanwhile, Singapore positioned itself as the regional parking garage for capital. Boring assets priced in a currency global funds actually trust. This is where the mocking stopped. When inflation surged and rates climbed, cheap markets cracked first. Investors didn't ask who had higher growth stories. They asked who could absorb stress without changing the rules. Malaysia hesitated. Singapore didn't. That hesitation is everything. Capital doesn't punish countries for being imperfect. It punishes them for being unpredictable. So now you're seeing the quiet migration. Not dramatic exits, just gradual reallocation. Property funds trimming exposure. Families hedging futures. Entrepreneurs incorporating where the rulebook is thicker than the speeches. Nobody announces this shift. It's not emotional, it's defensive. Cheap assets feel good at entry. Stable systems feel good at exit. And exits are when reality shows up. Let's kill the fairy tale first. Malaysians are not moving to Singapore because they love Singapore. They're moving because the spreadsheet stopped working at home. This migration isn't emotional, it's actuarial. The old narrative said, stay in Malaysia. Cost of living is lower, property is cheaper, you'll live better. That math collapsed quietly. Salaries stalled while asset prices pretended to grow, education costs rose. Healthcare went semi-private without admitting it. Currency drift turned into a lifestyle tax. Suddenly, the middle class realized something terrifying. They were saving, but not advancing. This is the key distinction elites understand, and everyone else learns too late. Singapore doesn't promise upward mobility through dreams. It offers downside protection through systems. Look at how middle-class behavior changed. People stopped asking, can I afford a bigger house? They started asking, will my savings survive 20 years? That question alone kills the Malaysia versus Singapore debate. In Singapore, a professional doesn't need explosive growth. They need stability that compounds, CPF contributions that actually grow, banks that don't gamble with deposits, a stock market where dividends arrive even when headlines panic. You don't get rich fast. You just don't fall backward. That's why the migration profile changed. It's not backpackers, it's not dreamers, it's couples in their 30s and 40s, dual income households, founders incorporating holding companies, families buying one expensive, boring condo instead of 3 cheap, illiquid ones. They're not flexing, they're hedging. Property in Singapore is not a home upgrade, it's a jurisdiction upgrade. Yes, prices are insane. That's the point. High prices act as a filter. They screen out speculation and lock in capital that intends to stay. When you buy, you commit. When you commit, the system protects you because your collapse would hurt everyone else. Malaysia never built that psychological contract. Cheap property felt friendly, but friendliness doesn't defend value. When cycles turn, friendliness disappears, rules blur, narratives change, foreigners become convenient villains. Singapore never pretended to be friendly. It promised to be consistent. That's why people are leaving quietly. No protests, no speeches, no dramatic I give up posts, just LinkedIn updates, incorporation documents, school transfers, brokerage account reallocations, SGD replacing MYR in long-term plans. The most dangerous moment for a country is not crisis. It's when the middle class stops arguing and starts planning exits. And that phase is already over. Malaysia didn't lose to Singapore because of politics. It didn't lose because of size. It didn't even lose because of corruption. Malaysia lost the moment capital stopped believing the future would be protected there. That's the part people hate hearing, because it removes emotion from the story. For decades, Malaysians told themselves a comforting myth. Singapore is just a city. Malaysia is the real country. Capital never agreed. Capital doesn't care about national pride, historical grievances, or who mocked whom in the 1980s. Capital asks 3 boring questions only. Will the rules still apply when things get ugly? Will my currency still mean something in 20 years? Will I be blamed when the system fails? On all 3, Singapore answered clearly. Malaysia hesitated. That hesitation is fatal in finance. Singapore made a brutal trade-off early. It chose to be expensive, exclusive, and disciplined. It accepted slower population growth, higher property prices, and constant criticism in exchange for something priceless, credibility. Malaysia chose comfort, growth stories, cheap assets, flexible narratives. It worked during good times. It failed the moment the global cycle tightened. Now watch the result. People aren't moving to Singapore. They are moving their future. They keep parents in Malaysia. They keep memories in Malaysia. But they move assets, careers, children's education, and retirement math elsewhere. This is the most painful kind of loss because it's invisible. Airports stay open, cities still function, flags still wave, but the compounding stops. When middle-class families stop believing their country can protect 30-year plans, no stimulus package fixes that, no speech reverses it, no nationalist slogan convinces a spreadsheet. Singapore didn't win by being lovable, it won by being predictable when everyone else wanted flexibility. Malaysia didn't fail dramatically, it failed gradually, quietly, one bank transfer at a time. And that's why the old mockery aged so badly. The joke wasn't that Singapore was small, the joke was assuming size mattered more than systems. History doesn't reward pride. It rewards places that make boring promises and keep them for decades. Capital noticed. People followed. Not because Singapore is perfect, but because in an unstable world, perfectly boring beats emotionally cheap every single time.